I'm Steve Wilkerson, and I'm with David Royse, Executive Editor of the News Service of Florida. David, I can't believe it. This is our last interview together. You're headed north to Chicago, Illinois. Good luck to you. We're going to miss you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I've enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed these talks with you. I think they've been informative and, not too bad.
Not too bad. Okay. Let's talk about what's happening.
Sure.
This is the big story this week is the governor signed a budget for a 2013 session and vetoed certain items. Give us an overview.
Well, the $70-some-odd billion budget, $368 million in vetoes is, it's not really that big of a percentage of the budget, but it's a pretty high number. One of those projects was a huge amount of money for a bike trail that would have gone from St. Petersburg to, or near St. Petersburg to near Titusville, sort of cutting across the I-4 corridor, across the middle of the state. He vetoed that. That was a huge part of that $368 million worth of vetoes. But a lot of the rest of them, and he only just did this, so we're really just now getting a chance to look through it, but a lot of school projects, a lot of buildings for colleges and universities that essentially the governor says they either didn't go through the process, that is, they sort of came out of nowhere near the end of the budgeting.
Up at the end.
Yeah, and that happens. A project is nowhere to be seen all through the committee process, and then suddenly when the budget is in conference, new items show up, and he vetoed a lot of those things. He vetoed projects that there was no seeming statewide interest in, or in some cases, projects that weren't asked for by the agency that that they would into whose budget they would go. And another notable one that popped out at me was several $1 million for a STEM building, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math building at Gulf Coast State College in Panama City, which is in Senate President Don Gates' district.
What was the Senate President's reaction to that?
Well, it was surprisingly muted. He also didn't get a water project in Mossy Head that he was interested in. That got vetoed as well. But it was muted. He said, it's the governor's job to veto projects, and so we start again tomorrow. The new budget year starts tomorrow morning, and Don Gates is a really interesting guy, and he's sometimes a little bit combative. And
well, let me mention about that Florida Tax Watch.
Right.
An organization that's been watching the budget for years, kind of a watchdog organization, kind of talked about these kinds of projects that pop up, and President Gates kind of had some tough words about that.
And he sounded furious, and a lot of other legislators also sort of take umbrage at an outside organization, sort of passing judgment on these various items. And Gates was particularly harsh, and he said that the Tax Watch is irrelevant 364 days of the year, and they release this list of projects that they don't think follow the process. But he was more or less, the Senate President was muted with the governor's vetoes. He said, that's the governor's job. That's what he's supposed to do is, take a hard look at these projects. And Gates had a lot of praise for the budget as a whole, which, on veto day, that's the news is what he's vetoed. But of course, there's hundreds of millions of dollars of spending still in the budget that's not as newsworthy because it's already been there. We've known about it for a while now, but this was a pretty interesting budget in itself. It had new money, $480 million for teacher pay raises. It had money for state worker pay raises. It was new money to go around this year after years of having to cut the budget because of the economy. This is a budget where there was some money to go around.
A high visibility issue for weeks has been, what will the governor do about tuition increases at our universities? What happened?
He vetoed legislation that would have had the universities give a 3% tuition increase. The state university system, elements within the state university system have said for a long time that if you want a world-class university system, you can't do it on the cheap. And Florida's is among the least expensive university systems in the country. many people who send their kids to the universities of Florida or Florida State or these various universities, maybe they don't realize it, but it's a much better bargain than a lot of other high-profile state and large state university systems like those in California, North Carolina, Michigan. Those frequently get mentioned. And so officials in the university system have said for a long time, we need to have more money to retain professors, to be able to offer high-quality programs. And if legislators aren't going to budget large amounts of tax dollars, then we need to raise tuition. And the legislature this year passed a 3% tuition increase. The governor vetoed it. He said in his veto message that he's proud of the fact that Florida offers an affordable college or university education, and that it's something he's been talking about for a couple of years. I think this tuition increase veto is sort of part of the continuing change in Rick Scott.
To put that change into words, because something has happened.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about him being in re-elect mode and so forth, but there's kind of a change that has happened to the governor, a little bit of a different face.
Yeah, face is a good word. I don't know if he is having a genuine transformation or if he's always been interested in this stuff and he's just accentuating it now that he's running for re-election. But he's really doing a lot of things, sort of populist things like vetoing a tuition increase, where he's able to say to people, hey, I don't want your cost of living to go up. You've got kids at college. 3% a year that could be a lot of money. And he's highlighting more and more his position on things like that. The teacher pay raise is probably the best example of it. Republicans in this state have for years said that the answer to improving education is not to throw more money at it. They've battled the teachers union, which has been an enemy of Republicans in some years in this state, and they've said for years, paying teachers more is not as high a priority as demanding accountability from the teachers we have. And when they have talked about pay raises for teachers, they've talked exclusively about merit pay raises. Governor Scott comes out this year after years of Republicans taking that tack and saying, we want to give an across-the-board teacher pay raise. Now, he didn't get that across-the-board raise. The legislature gave him the money for the raises, but put some, some qualifications on it for merit. But this sort of shift into populist mode happens, as the governor is, going into the final year before his reelection. And so, of course, people are going to question his motives. He's said a lot of this stuff for years. I think it's probably been something he's been interested in all along. He's just now accentuating it, and they're sort of letting people know that he cares about them as they prepare to go vote on whether they want to reelect him.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
For more news about Florida politics and government, visit the Advances section of our website.